Hello and welcome, my name is Redboot, and this is a playthrough of Pendragon, The Fall of Rome in Britain, designed by Marc Gouyon-Rety, from the GMT Games Coin series, which was originally designed by Volko Ruhnke. And we are on the 6th video. I'm thinking it's probably going to go 7 or 8 videos, depending on how many cards there are left. I can't remember exactly which card we're on. I think we're on the 17th card. And we could go up to 26 cards, anywhere from 18 to 26 cards, depending on where the last epoch phase falls. So probably 1 or 2 videos left, probably 2 videos left is what I'm thinking, including this one. So, well, as has been the case every time so far, I do have some errors to correct. I wouldn't mind getting through an error-free video, but due to my inexperience with this game, that's kind of difficult to do, and I do very much appreciate the input from the community to correct some of the errors. Particularly, I want to shout out to Light Lamp Dog and Sebastian Deschacht, who are pretty consistent in pointing out problems and issues, and I think that creates a better learning experience for the viewer than watching somebody sort of fumble through and getting it 90% right, 95% right and 5% wrong, and getting confused by some of the things that I get wrong. So I do want to correct the errors that I've made. So we'll start with a couple things that went wrong last time in Decangli. So in the last video in Decangli, I did an intercept command, and but I didn't move my Dux cavalry into Decangli. They were already there, and eliminated, I think it was 5 of the Scotti raiders that were there. Well, if you're in a region and you do an intercept command, you don't have to use the 2 resources that you normally use for an intercept command. That's actually for the movement. So I did use too much. I used 2 resources in that case of Britain, and I didn't need to. So we'll correct that real quick by moving Britain resources from 10 to 12. In addition, the units that were eliminated in Decangli, I believe it was 5 Scotti raiders, had 2 plunder, and I am allowed to convert one of those plunder either to, I could put it on as plunder for my Dux units, like that, or I could put it into the region like that. I'm going to put it into the region because I want to increase prosperity. I've kind of gone and looked at the scores that would exist if the game were to end now, and they're very close. So I want to give, and the Dux really need to prevent the Scotti from getting more renown and building up more resources themselves. So I'm going to do, I'm going to actually put the plunder in and increase the prosperity in Decangli. And that will enable me to move prosperity and prosperity plus prestige up from 31 to 32. Now, the other thing that you'll notice that I did in Decangli was that I actually created militia there in a muster command, originally up here, and then they marched down to Karnoe. Well, I couldn't do that because you can only muster militia in a space where you have existing Civitatis pieces. So my correction for that is simply going to be to eliminate these militia, erase the move down to Karnoe, and put them back into the Civitates available forces. And speaking of Karnoe, you'll notice that Karnoe has a Britain control marker. It shouldn't. Whether there's militia there or not, there's no stronghold. And so Sebastian Deschacht pointed this out and is quite right. There shouldn't be a Britain control marker. And similarly, up further north in Nwantai, there should not be a Britain control marker for the same reason. There's no stronghold up there. So even though I moved militia into that space, and I have a majority in that space, no stronghold, no control. So I'll take that out. And that actually reduces Britain control by 3. 2 for the population in Cornouailles and 1 for the population in Nowontai. So we'll move this down from 33 to 30. And finally, the Scotti warbands in Nowontai have been there since before the last epoch, and they should have been removed at the end of the last epoch or during the last epoch phase because they couldn't retreat into a settlement because no settlement existed. So I've been sort of sitting there waiting for the next Nowontai raid, which actually came, in hopes that a settle command might turn that into a settlement, but not to be. Those need to be eliminated, and the Scotti will have to start over from scratch before they have a settlement in Nowontai. And with that, I think we're ready to begin. And one thing I want to point out before I play the Mirden card is that having done a little bit of scorekeeping, the Dux is barely ahead right now. The Dux have negative 28 points, which is 60, their goal, minus the 32 popularity plus prestige that they have. And the Scotti have negative 29 points, which is 34, I believe, minus the 5 renown that they have. The Kivitates have a score, I believe, of 3, and I don't remember what the score that the Saxons have, but it's fairly high. It's less than negative 10. So if you compare the two sides, you take the lower of the two, and you have a score of negative 28 for the Dux, negative 29 for the Scotti. So we're currently in the lead, but we're holding on by a thread, and I think this should be an exciting last couple of videos, and I'll try to keep track for you of where we're at. But suffice it to say, the Dux need to build some prestige. That's a major priority, and another major priority is to deprive the Scotti of getting renown. So with that in mind, we're going to take a look at the Mirden card. And the Mirden card is a very powerful card. In fact, it's a shield card for all the units. But the unit that has the opportunity to take it right now is the Dux, because the Scotti aren't eligible. The eligible factions are the Dux and the Kivitates. And this says you can execute a command plus feat at normal cost and then remain eligible for the next card, which is particularly powerful for the Dux, because on the next card, which is the Dalreda card, they are the second faction. So they'll have really an opportunity to take 2 turns in a row. So I think it's fairly obvious that they're going to take the event in the Mirden card. And by taking the event, they will get a command plus feat. So ordinarily, I would move them down to the event, but since they stay eligible for the next card, they will just stay in the eligible factions, and the Kivitates will be able to get in a command plus feat, full command plus feat. So this could be a good turn for us, and let's see if we can parlay it into some good stuff. Now, looking at the board, we'll see that there are a number of opportunities for the Dux to intercept, and so that is what I'm planning to do. Unfortunately, we can't intercept up here in Nowontai because we don't control Nowontai. I just corrected that error. So that's sort of unfortunate, but we do have the opportunity to get a pretty good hurt on the Saxons down in the south eastern part of the board, and we should be able to destroy this unit that has plunder and Silures as well, even though we don't have control of Cornouailles and Dobuni and can't get additional troops in there. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a pawn on up here in Text-Awarity, and I'm going to do an intercept up in Text-Awarity to deal with these 4 troops. And I'm going to place a pawn in Aberracum, and Catalawani, with the notion of going down into London, Cantiaci, and Regni, and possibly Trinovantes, in order to kill the Saxon raiders down there. And I'm going to put a pawn in, and actually, now that I think about it, I think I'm going to put a pawn in Iceni as well. I won't put I'm going to do an intercept in Text-Awarity. I'm not sure whether to put a pawn up there or not, because I don't actually use resources from Text-Awarity, but I am going to put a pawn also down here in Silures to use my Dux cavalry down there to kill that one unit and take its plunder. There may be others. Atrebates being a possibility, Regni being a possibility, but I need to sort of map this out a little bit and make sure that I have enough units to do what I need to do. And I'm going to combine this with the invite command. I'm going to invite Saxon warbands into Iceni with the notion of sending them over the regional border into Trinovantes and putting a herd on their brethren over there. So I'm going to do the invite first, and what we do is we take 3 warbands and we place those in Iceni, and we'll put a red Federate marker on them. And then we take a settlement and put a red Federati marker there as well. Since they're Federati, they don't count towards the Saxon victory conditions. And although I'm not sure if we go through the next Annona phase or not, because it'll be on the last Epoch card, but even so, I think this is probably a good investment. So that's going to be the first thing that we do. So in Text-Awarity, starting from the north, I don't need to spend any resources. I'm just going to do an intercept from the fort there. And so that's no resources. In Iceni, I'm going to send over the border the 3 Federati into Trinovantes, as well as the 2 Dux cavalry. And in fact, let's keep back a Dux cavalry. Well, actually, let's keep back both Dux cavalry, because we don't need both of them. We don't need either of them. The Federati will be enough, actually, to eliminate the 5 raiders. So I'm just going to move the Federati down there, and I can do that because Britain controls that space. Now, down here in Regni, I'm going to do an intercept, and I need one Dux cavalry to move down. I'm going to move that Dux cavalry down from Eberacum all the way down through Corioltani. Oh, I can't, because I don't control the road. So I'm going to have to move him from Atrebates next door. So I'll do that. Move him into the fort there. Okay, I think I got that squared away. And then over here in Silures, I don't need to move anything because I already have Dux cavalry there ready to attack. So actually, at the end of the day, I only moved Dux cavalry from 2 spaces. Well, Federati from 1 space, that was Iceni. And then a Dux cavalry from Atrebates. There's Iceni. And then Atrebates over to Regni. So that's going to cost me 4 resources. So Britain resources go down from 12 to 8. And let's see how we do on these battles. Now up here in Text-Awarity, we're in the hills. So there is an opportunity for them to either ambush or evade. I believe they're going to attempt an evasion. And that is the case. They evade on a 4 to 6, so let's hope for a low number. We get a 3, so they fail to evade. And with that failed evasion, we will do 2 damage to them. They're worth a half each, so all 4 of them will go back into the available forces pile. And the 2 plunder. One will get converted to regional prosperity, and one will get eliminated. So we got a plunder, a prosperity restored, and we got a prestige as well because we won the battle. So Dux Prestige climbs to a whopping 1. And more importantly, popularity plus prestige goes from 33 to 34, prosperity going up to 33. And that ends the battle situation in Textuary. So let's move here to Trinowantes, which is a Saxon region. So once again, the Saxons will evade their Federati brethren on a roll of 4 to 6. This is an important one to roll low here because there's a lot of plunder at stake. And they roll a 2. So they fail to evade. And with that failed evasion, we do 3 damage, which means 6 come off the board. That means all 5 of the Scotti Raiders come off the board. And of those 5 plunder, half, rounded down, can go back into area prosperity while the other 3 go away. Which means that prosperity and prosperity plus prestige go up by 2, which is definitely the direction that we wanted to be heading. Next we will resolve Silures, where we have 1 plunder-laden raider and 1 Dux cavalry, and since it is in the hills, once again, they need a 4 to 6 to evade. So far, our luck is held, so let's see if it happens again. So we need to roll a 1, 2, or a 3, and we roll a 5. So they evade there. They may be there for a while, though. I don't know that with the Scotti we'll be doing a lot of return commands in the near future. And finally, we have the Saxons in Regni, and they will attempt to evade as well, but they only evade, I believe, on a 6. Well, let's take a roll, and it is a 2. So again, a failure to evade. And since there are 2 cavalry and 4 Scotti Raiders, one of the plunder will go to the bottom row of the top row. One of the plunder will go away, and all of the Saxon Raiders will be eliminated. So that was a pretty successful turn, and we'll just go up to the top of the board. And we're going to adjust the prosperity for that last turn. Plus, I didn't give myself credit for the 2 additional battles that the Dux won. So we'll give prosperity plus prestige an extra jump up to 39. And Dux Prestige will march up to 3. So in one fell swoop, we moved from a score of negative 28 to a score of negative 21, compared to the Scotti's negative 29. So I feel pretty happy about that. And we did a feat on this turn. I want to make sure. I don't believe that the feat cost any resources. No, invite does not cost resources unless you convert pieces from the Britons, which we did not do. We put additional on the board. So I think we're done now with this particular turn, and we turn to the Civitas turn for the Mirrodin card. Now I'm a little torn about what to do about the Civitantes. Under normal circumstances, they have a lot of towns off the board and militia off the board. So one might argue to do a muster command in this case, but their score is very high relative to the Dux, and so really, I think they should be helping the Dux to win, even at the expense of scoring some points. So I think what we're going to do is do a battle command in Nowantai and Silures and try to kill the Scotti Raiders there, and more importantly, eliminate their plunder so at least they don't get the renown if they do a return command. So what I'm going to do is while this might not be optimal for the Kiwitates, I think it's our best chance of actually winning the game. I'm going to put a pawn in Nwantai, and I'm going to put a pawn in Solures, and I'm going to take a chance on getting ambushed and see if I can eliminate those units. So starting in Nwantai, where it's 4-on-4, pretty equal fight, but it is in the hills, and so the Scotti have an opportunity to either ambush or evade, and according to the non-player battle tactics, they will attempt an evade and try to protect that plunder. And so once again, they evade on a 4-6 because it's in the hills. So here's the roll, and they roll a 4. So they successfully evade, and the battle is over in Nwantai. So I'm not going to shift the camera. I need to do the same thing in Solures, also hills, also a 4-6, and they roll a 4. So that was, well, sort of a wasted turn for the Kiwitates. I'm not sure if that was optimal or not, but didn't cost me any resources, so I thought I'd give it a shot. So we are done with the Mirrodin card. So the Kiwitates move to ineligible. The Scotti and the Saxons move up to eligible to join the already eligible Dukes because of the action of the Mirrodin card. And the next card is the Dalriada card. So we'll put that here. Scotti will go first. Dukes will go second. And the next card is Mariners by Sea. So this is actually fairly simple. The Scotti are going to take the event because they don't have enough plunder and raiders on the board in order to do a return command. So, and this is a shield event for them. So what this says is Scotti plays one available settlement on this card to be counted as an on-map settlement for victory purposes. I suspect that that's going to be too little too late for them. I'll have to check the victory conditions, but I think they need several settlements in order to win the game. So I don't think this is going to work or help for them. But it's a fairly simple thing to enact. We'll just place the Dalriada card up here, above the evangelization card, and place the first Scotti settlement on the card. And that'll be the Scotti turn. So the Scotti take the event, and the Dukes go next on the card, so they can do a command plus feat. And what I'm going to do with the Dukes turn is take some time to try to consolidate some of the successes that we've already had. So I'm going to do a march command with a build feat. And I'm going to march from Karwaitii with 2 units into Nwantai. And I'm going to march from Dekangli with 1 unit into Kornoi. And then in both of those places, I'm going to place a fort with my build command. I can do this in any space with cavalry and more friendly than barbarian pieces, which is the case in both. So I'm going to place a hill fort here and a hill fort in Nwantai. And that's going to use up a lot of resources. 2 for Karwaitii, 2 for Dekangli. That's 4, and then 3 resources per space is a total of 10 resources spent for both of those actions. Now you might notice that between the 2 of us, we only have, that is to say the Britain resources and the Dukes resources, we only have 17 left. So I'm going to use, obviously, some Dukes resources. I'm going to move the Britain resources from 8 to 5. And I'm going to move Dukes resources from 9 down to 2. And that'll be the 10 resources for this turn. And that is it for the Dalriada card. So as far as eligibility is concerned, we'll move the Dux and the Scotti down to ineligible, and we'll move the Civitates up to eligible along with the Saxons, and we'll move on to the Mariners by Sea card. So we'll shift the cards here, Mariners by Sea, moving to the active card on the discard pile, and the next card is going to be Monasteries. We're starting to get into territory now where the Epoch card could start coming up. I believe it could come up as early as card 21, and we're currently, I believe, on card 20. No, we're actually on card 19, so it's not quite there yet. But on this card, Mariners by Sea, we see that the Civitates are first. The Saxons are first, and it is a shield event. So let's see what they're going to do. So yes, as is the case in all the bot turns for the barbarians, the first thing you check for is whether they're going to do a return command, which basically takes a look at whether they have a critical mass of raiders and or plunder on the board. And in this case, because of the decimation that took place in the last Dux turn, both the Saxons and the Scotti are not in a position to return, and so they'll either take the event or more likely raid, or raid. But the event is the priority, and so Mariners by Sea, since it is a shield event, is going to be played by the Saxons. And this says, limited assets. Flip one patrolled marker to no patrol, to flip one no patrol marker to patrolled. A barbarian may free raid now once. So let's see how we want to play this. Well, I have to say I'm a bit in conundrum as to what to do here, because the Saxons could flip a patrolled marker in Oceanus Britannicus or Oceanus Germanicus to make it easier for them to raid. By flipping over in Oceanus Hibernicus or Oceanus Septentrionalis a no patrol marker to a patrol marker. Problem is they'd be hurting the Scotti by doing that, and I don't think it's a good idea to hurt the Scotti when they're sort of in it together at this point, and the Scotti score is the one that's the most controlling. So I'm not sure that's really thematic. Probably, certainly a Saxon player in a 4-player game would screw the Scotti and flip a control markers in those oceans to give itself an advantage. But I think I'm not going to do that here, and I'm just going to do the free raid. The other thing I'm a little unsure about is that it says on the card that I may free raid once, in parentheses. And I'm not sure whether that means in one region or one raid. I think it means one raid, which means I can do multiple regions. So I'm going to do a multiple region raid by the Saxons. If anybody disagrees with that, let me know. But that's how I interpret the card. So I've done some of the work off camera here and have determined that because the priority for a free raid is to raid into areas with the highest priority, with the highest prosperity, the Saxons are going to raid in Atrebates and Regni, and then I did a random die roll between Iceni and Trinoantes and came up with Trinoantes for its next raid. So, and then I also rolled for the number of raiders with the appropriate subtraction. So I have 4 raiders raiding into Trinoantes, 3 raiders raiding into Regni, and 3 raiders raiding into Atrebates. So the first thing that we're going to do is take plunder, and it's going to be a fairly significant amount of plunder. This is, by the way, going to be with a ravage command because there is no higher priority inland target. So with the ravage command, they're not limited by population. They can take, well, they can only take 2 in Trinowantes anyway. They can take all 3 in Regni, and they can take 3 in Atrebates. So they take a total of 8 plunder. And after all those gains, we're going to have to take a prosperity hit from 36 to 28, and from 39 to 31 for popularity, for prosperity plus prestige. Oop, adjust the camera in there so you can see where those ended up. By the way, I should add, for those that are curious, one of the reasons that we're doing a ravage on a lot of these is because the ravage command in the bot is dependent in part upon whether or not the Dux and or Kiwitante's victory is at -2 or better. And the Kiwitante's victory has been at a positive number for most of the game. As you can see up there, their target is 27, and currently their control is at 30, although I do want to recount that at some point, but it's close. Certainly it's not as low as 24, which is what it would need to be in order to not have a ravage and to do these as a surprise. So they are going to do this as a ravage for that reason. The first thing we do with ravage is we roll a 1d6, and on a 4 to 6, the population in those areas takes a hit. So I'm just going to roll those all at the same time, starting with Trinowantes, 5, and then Regni, 1, and then Atrebates, 5. So in Trinowantes and Atrebates, there is a reduction in population. So in Trinowantes, we'll take a population 1 marker, whoops, and place it there. And down here in Atrebates, we'll place a population 2 marker, moving it from 3 to 2. That adds 2 refugees to available forces, which we might be able to repatriate later. And then, because population is the basis for Britain control marker moves from 30 down to 28. Finally, with the ravage, the rule is that the Dux, then the Kiwitantes, then the Scotti, which is irrelevant in this case, can force the raiding Saxons into battle with no evade or withdraw. So in Trinowantes, we have 3 Federate, which will eliminate the 4 Saxons, placing 1 prosperity cube back into place. In Regni, similarly, we have the Dux eliminating 3 of the raiders and putting 1 prosperity back into place. In Atrebates, got to think about for a second. In Atrebates, we have 3 militia, and I believe the militia strike in the field battle phase, and the melee phase, and the raiders would strike in the harass phase if there's none left. So they are going to do battle there as well, and will eliminate the 3 units with 2 of their plunder similarly. So that was a very short-lived raid with ravage into space that was occupied by fairly strong units, and therefore wasn't very successful. And we gained back 3 prosperity in that process. So let's go up to the top of the board, and we'll add ourselves 3 prosperity plus prestige and 3 prosperity. And that is the end of the raid, the ignominious end of the raid by the Saxons. So the Saxons will move to the event, and the Civitates will do a command plus feat. So having given this a bit of a think, I think what we're going to do is do the same thing that we did last time. I'm going to do a command, a full command in 2 regions. I'm going to do a battle command again in Nowante and Silures, and hopefully we won't have bad luck like we did last time with the evade rolls. But I'm not going to do a feat. I was tempted. Well, I don't need to do the reinforce command because I have enough to kill what's there. And the pillage command is not really worthwhile in either of those regions because there's really not much plunder to add to resources. So I'm just going to do the battle command and let the chips fall where they may. So starting in Nowante and then Silures, I'm going to go ahead and roll the evade die for those 2, and it will be very similar, but hopefully we'll have a battle this time. So these are both hill regions, and I evade on a 4 to 6, or that is to say the Scotti evade on a 4 to 6. So they rolled a 3 in Nowante, and in Silures they rolled a 5. So they managed to evade again in Silures, but in Nowante they did not, and for that reason they will manage to be eliminated. The plunder is removed, does not go back into prosperity, but is not available for renown if they do a return, and the Scotti units go back to available forces. And that is the end of the Mariners by Sea card. So we'll change our eligibility. The Dux and the Scotti will be eligible next turn on the next card. And the next card is the Monasteries card, so we'll place that over on the discard active card pile. And we'll flip over the 4th card of this video, which is the Nial Noigalach card, which looks like it's primarily a Scotti card, but the Scotti won't be eligible next turn, but they might pass this turn, so let's see what the bot says. Yes, indeed, the Scotti are going to pass the Monasteries card because the Nial Nagalak card is a shield card for them. So I won't put the camera on it, but I'm going to move them to pass. And that brings us to the Dux, who may take any action on this card they wish. By the way, one brief bookkeeping thing. Some of you might have already caught it, but when I marched with the Dux into Carnoii and Nowante, put the forts there, I also took control of those 2 provinces, and I did not adjust Britain control at that point, and in fact I should have adjusted it by 3. So we move back from 28 to 31. Well, as the Dux, I'd actually be tempted to pass on this card myself, but unfortunately I know that the Scotti are going to take the card next turn, and I'm not going to have an opportunity to take the card because it's actually a pretty powerful card for both the Dux and for the Scotti. So what will the Dux do? Well, I'm a bit torn. There's not a lot for the Dux to do. They can't do a train command because they don't have any cavalry and available units. Otherwise, I would probably avail myself of that. They don't have many resources left to work with. So a march command, one possibility is to actually move down into Dobuni, where there are 2 Saxon raiders waiting to return, Scotti raiders waiting to return with plunder. But I don't really want to waste the resources on a march command at this point, but I suppose that's a possibility. The other possibility is to simply do a battle in Silures and try to eliminate that 1 unit down there, and I think it's effectively a pass, but I think that's what I'm going to do at this point and kind of see how things develop. Again, I'm not sure if that's really optimal, but let's see what happens in terms of this evade. Can they evade one more time? Let's see if the 3rd time's a charm. And it is. They failed to evade. So this unit will go back into available forces, and more importantly, the plunder will go into no man's land and be available to no one. And that's going to be the end of the phase. The only thing is that I won a battle. And so prestige, which I'll do off camera, goes from 3 to 4. And popularity plus prestige goes from 34 to 35. And that is the end of the monasteries card. So I do want to get through a 5th card. So I'm going to move the Niel Nagalak card down to the discard active card pile and flip over Migrants. Now, we did determine on the last turn, and it is still the case, that the Scotti will be taking the event. And the event says that it is a, I can't remember what the term is, but is persistent through the end of the epoch. Scotti raids may target the region of Niel Nagalak and may add any from there as extra raiders into other target spaces. It was basically a heightened reinforcement area, and I think in a longer game might come in useful here as well, so we'll have to see. But that card is going to go up into the card area, that the little collection here that the Scotti have, and that will be their turn. They don't get a free raid or anything like that. They're just going to take the event and take the card. Now, before I did that, I should have moved the eligible factions back. Oops, and moved the Dux back down to ineligible. And so the Scotti have taken the event. And next on the card is the Civitates. The Saxons. So the Saxons may take a command and a feat. My guess is that they're going to raid, but let's see what the bot says. Now, on the next card, the Saxons have a shield event, and according to this, to the bot, they actually would pass this turn. The thing that's a little strange, that's right. So, so they should pass. And this is actually kind of interesting. So I'll obey the bot and place this in the pass. Place them in pass. But the question is, what do I do with the Civitates? And what's interesting is the Civitates on the Migrants card go first. And therefore can sort of steal from the Saxons the right to go first. And so I think I'm also going to pass in order to accomplish that. That's a little gamey, but there's really not much I can do right now except react to the barbarians on the Civitates turn. So I am going to do a Civitates pass, and that will end the play on the monasteries card. So these 3 factions move to eligible, and the Scotti move to ineligible. And don't think that I forgot that I add resources. So the Civitates passed, which means that they add 3 resources. The Saxons passed once and add 1 resource. And I believe earlier I forgot to add resources for the Scotti when they passed for the opportunity to take on the Niel Nagalak card. So I'm going to move them from 5 to 6. I'll double check that when I edit the video and correct that if I'm wrong. So just like that, we're done with the monasteries card. I'm going to move the Migrants card down, and Classis Britannica is the next card, and we should be getting close now. We just played our 21st card and I believe that that is the first card, the 21st card. 22nd card is the Classes Britannica, and these are the cards that will are the first where there's a possibility of an Epoch card coming up. So the Epoch card should be coming up in the next video, which I assume will be our last video, but let's see how it goes. This was a particularly successful video for us because I was actually getting a little worried. The initial raids by the Scotti and the Saxons were pretty devastating early in the game, really taking a toll on prosperity and therefore prosperity plus prestige. But partially because there's less plunder available, and partially because we've been doing a little bit of butt kicking, especially in this video, I'm starting to feel a little bit better about our chances to prevail in this. I will take a look at the score and announce that at the next video. I can see at a glance right now that the Dukes have moved up from -28 to -25, which is good. I think that the Scotti have moved up from -29 to -28 because they gained a renown there right at the end for passing. So I think I believe we are now 3 points ahead, and it's going to be a close one. So stay tuned, and hope you join me for what I think is going to be the last video on the next round. Thanks.